All right, so for this pick, I'm gonna go with I mentioned them earlier. The first Yankee team that I ever fell in love with was back in 2006. That's where I really fell in love with baseball. I really started to play baseball and commit myself to it. With that team, Melky Cabrera's full-on rookie year. There was nothing too exciting about the team, but it was just what I loved. My favorite pitcher of all time, I found him through this team. It was Mike Messina. When I first started pitching in high school, I used to go into my stretch, go down, and get ready to throw, just like Mike Messina. I never mastered the knuckle curve, but that team was such a good squad. I think those mid 2000 Yankee teams, when you're watching from '05, '06, '07, all had World Series like potential, but was just missing that ace in the rotation. I mean, look at the rotation outside of Chin Ming Wong. You had Randy Johnson with a 5 ERA, Messina with a 3.51, but then it gets ugly from here. Here's a blast from the past. Jarrett Wright with 11-7 with a 4.49. And then let's see if you guys remember this one.
I'm looking at
Sean
it.
Chacon.
Yeah.
Sean Chacon with a 7 ER. Now that was man. Listen, the one thing that sticks out for me. So I mentioned Manny Ramirez earlier. I used to remember him vividly, just abusing Scott Proctor every time, every single time that he stepped up to the plate. And I don't know what is it about this team. I don't know if it's just because I abused MLB 2K as a kid and I just kept like throwing Octavio Dotel in every chance that I had, but I was just in love with this '06 Yankee team that eventually got knocked out by young Verlander and Kenny Rogers and all those guys. Man, that was the Maglio Ordonez year, I believe, in '06. So,
Yeah.
and we just ran into a buzzsaw with that squad. But the Yankees absolutely had, like I said, in those years, we had championship contending teams, but we just never had the number one, the number two, that 1-2 punch, like I mentioned earlier, to get the deal done.
I
But
was
that
in a
team I
similar
hold near and dear. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a similar spot to you, J. Ray. I said like I remember 2004 pretty vaguely, but like '06 was like my first full throttle. I'm a fan. This is my
Yeah.
personality now, kind of thing. I used to in the basement of my house, we used to have like a big old whiteboard. And 2006, I distinctly remember I used to write in the middle. I drew like a big Yankee symbol. I had who they were playing every day. I had the AL East standings. I had the wild card standings. I had the lineup. I used to do it every day. I used to erase on my finger. Yankees won, put a number up. Um, this was also the year they traded for my king, Bobby Abreu. He was like
I
Mm.
love
my
Bobby
my
Abreu.
favorite player.
Ew. Ew.
Yeah.
Look at his stats when he got to the Yankees that year. I just had it right in front of me.
330 batting average, 926 OPS, 138 OPS plus.
Jesus Christ, man. He was a very good Yankee.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
An underrated Yankee.
And he had that crazy home run derby year that
Yeah, he
year
went
too.
off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was with the Phillies, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the team. It was the same thing. Also, I was 7 years old, but I got a wart on my foot from the summer. It was really bad. It was really deep. And I remember it because I used to try and stay up and watch the playoff games, but especially with the 8 o'clock starts, I always had to go to sleep in like the fifth or sixth inning. So we were treating it every day for like a month. And I'm waking up in the morning and I would like, if it got really painful, I would cry. And it was just like a bad day. We're up in the morning and I knew the Yankees were down in the series. And they lost in four. I know they were down in the series. And we're going through it, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to school. This hurts. And then I was like, I like half awake. I'm like, Mom, like, did the Yankees win? And she's like, No, they lost. And I just screamed. I lost it. Started wailing, crying. It's one of the more vivid, extreme memories of me crying that I can remember as a kid.
Oh my god.
That was my relationship with the '06 Yankees.
'06 and
Frustrating.
'07, those ones hurt a lot. I remember Victor
Those-
Martinez in '07 hitting a home run in the playoffs to seal the deal. Still hurts. But I'm gonna move on to my next pick. I'm gonna go with 2010, the Yankee team that I think all of us thought we were going back to back. I think we all thought that at one point we were going back to back. It's relatively the same team to what it was in '09 minus Matsui and Johnny Damon. But one of my favorite pickups that year was Lance Berkman. Never in my life did I envision him. You know, people put on pinstripes, and I told you guys this about Frankie Montas. He just didn't look like a Yankee to me. And I thought that about Lance Berkman, but he just fit in right away. I think he had a very good postseason too. It was probably our only decent bat when we were going up against Texas in October. And then here's a name for you guys. Let's see if you guys remember him from the squad. If I'm not mistaken, Kerry Wood was in the bullpen for us in 2010, and he looked amazing. He was, I think he was our setup man. He was coming out in the seventh or eighth inning back then, but he was dealing. He was still throwing gas, still looked good. It was just with that Texas team just overpowered us. That was the Josh Hamilton squad, Ian Kinsler and the boys. I don't know if I don't think Milton Bradley was still on that team in 2010. I could, but that's yeah. But Nelson Cruz was there. We just got overpowered. But that was a fun Yankee team. That was when the Grandy Man came aboard hitting bombs. Marcus Timms had a good season at DH. They were a fun group, and like I said, I think we all just thought they were gonna win a championship again. And unfortunately, Colby Lewis and the Texas Rangers knocked us out.
Oh,
Colby.
yeah, I mean, Kerry Wood is still one of my favorite pitchers of all time. The career that could have been. Oh, but I'm glad we got him in his little bullpen resurgence. You know.
Yeah, check this out. He had a 0.69 ERA.
Surreal.
That team, because like the 2009 Yankees went poll to poll, this is the best team ever, World Series confirmed, like from May, from April, May. And they went 3 series, and they were challenged. Like the World Series was like, oh shit, like we went down 1-0 and we were even at one point, but we never faced elimination that whole playoffs. And the 2010 Yankees were kind of the same thing. Like they won the division. We upgraded. We got Granderson, and we were feeling the same thing. And we just got to the ALCS, and that feeling of why aren't we winning? Why doesn't this team win? Kind of stuck with me. I felt more shock than I think that I've ever felt. And it wasn't crazy to think that the Rangers could beat us, but they were a really young team. They were nobodies for such a long time when we were kids.
Yeah.
And the Yankees were just that team. Like, we were the best team. We were the best team that year. Still, the Giants won the World Series, and the Rangers were better than the Giants, and we were better than the Rangers. But the Giants won. Credit to them. But yeah, I just remember feeling shock that year.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason we lost was we just had no pitching. CC Sabathia won 21 games that year, but then what we got out of AJ Burnett for the rest of his contract after that first season was just a complete letdown. So he didn't step up. Phil Hughes was our number 3 starter, won 18 games. So he had a nice year. But then you mentioned earlier, Jake, I don't remember what you said about Javier Vasquez's stats, but if you looked at this year, yeah, 2010, just as ugly.
Probably because he's not a good pitcher. If I'm being honest.